Official the Hood Mystic, and this is just my opinion. I know people ain't gonna agree with it. I know people gonna be mad at what I say, but it's just my opinion. I don't know why my opinion make people mad, and it's literally millions of videos on. I mean, I guess I'm not the only person that people mad at, so it just is what it is. This is just my truth. This is just what I see. This is just what I know. So let me just make sure everything is correct, and we just gonna get right into it. I don't want to waste your time. So as you see, Black Panther is a black operation, or a black op. The thing about a black operation is a covert operation by a government agency, or military organization. And so the difference between a black operation and just a normal operation is that there is a degree of deception. It is to conceal who's behind it, or to make it appear like somebody else is responsible. This is what is called a false flag operation. This happens a lot when you deal with the media, and when you deal with like rich white people, I guess, and just how they get down. I mean, don't shit be happening, and the shit that happens doesn't serve their agenda, so they can just silence it. Because when you live in a world with 7.8 billion people, there are all types of stories that you can talk about, and all different types of portrayals that you can put out, but there's like a strict thing that must happen when we talk about media portrayals and stereotypes and things of that nature. So a black op, just keep that in mind. Next slide. Propaganda. Propaganda is something that is used by the media or the powers that be to produce a emotional response, rather than for people to use your head and to be objective. When we become subjective, we only focus on what people tell us to focus on, and that could be a problem because we're human beings and we have different opinions. We're individuals. So a lot of the information and a lot of what's going down is, especially when it comes to the children, is represented by, you know, Merriam and Webster and these guys who make textbooks and things of that nature to put in pre-programmed lies. So as we grow older, they can just fixate on it. One of the main lies when you go to school is that you were bought here on slave ships and things of that nature. And so anything that promotes that narrative is somewhat called propaganda. And so once you know about the universe, that light and dark are the same things, you wouldn't get excited, you know, if it was a movie about 1 million black people all shit and gold. You understand that there has to be a dark side to that. That's like children. As children, we just want, you know, gold bars and candy and sweets and gum and things of that nature. But as you get older, you realize that it's some give and take that has to take place. So this movie represents trying to trigger emotional response of the masses, as opposed to just putting out a good movie and letting people decide, like, you know, that was a great movie or whatever. Let me tell somebody about it. Rather, the movie was great before you even watched it. So that's more of propaganda, more of as a result of hype. This is a movie review, so I'm going to talk about the movie and just have different points as to why I thought the movie was very bad and very destructive. It wasn't good at all, because when you think about it, you have a group of quote unquote black people who are isolated with unlimited resources, and while the whole world is getting their ass kicked by oppression and white supremacy, they are generally just living like fat rats. And so I don't know how you could be on the outside looking in that situation and proud of these niggas. Like, you would have to have some type of like, well, if it's like that, you know, if it's a matter of weapons, then why don't you help a nigga out? You know, shoot, help me out. But you realize that that's not the agenda of the Wakandans. The agenda of the Wakandans is the Wakandans. Wakandans only care about Wakandans. So if you're not a Wakandan, they didn't accept, you know what I'm saying? They didn't open their borders to niggas from America to help them. They just, you know, opened up a outreach for niggas, you know what I'm saying? Let them see the spaceship. They didn't, you know, acknowledge that we were one. You know what I'm saying? There was a clear distinction between the American and the African, and the African, being the Wakandan in the movie, just represented the boule. So if you don't know about the boule is a group of well-to-do black people. You can look it up. That's why I put it up there. Sigma Pi Phi. And they're actually headquartered in Atlanta, the same place that Marvel Cinemas is headquartered, and Tyler Perry Studios is headquartered. Back to the point of the Wakandans being the boule, a small group of elite African American or black people. You can't line to get in this group. You just have to be accepted by this group. And this group is to be the warrior elite class that keeps the working class African American. And I say the working class African American, and I'll get later in the video, I'll break down what I mean by working class African American or quote unquote black person. The boule, or the Wakandans, is the warrior elite class that keeps the normal black people away from white supremacy. So if you are a barrier to my upcomings, why would I celebrate you or be happy or even want to be a part of your team? You know, this is a boule coming out party. A couple days after the video, you had like an announcement that, you know, a lot of this movie or some of this movie was shot at my studios too. You know, so it's just letting you know what's happening and what's really going on if you want to pay attention. So if you want to learn more about the boule, Google Steve Coakley, Coakley. You would get more of a in-depth look at how these boys get down. All skin folk and kinfolk. And I'm not being a dissenter or a person that is trying to rile people up. I'm just speaking on the observations. The headquarters for Sigma Pi Phi is in Atlanta. The movie was shot in Atlanta. A lot of what's going down was straight up boule business. Nothing different. And let's talk about the boule real quick. A little excerpt. Sigma Pi Phi was the first successful and oldest African-American Greek letter organization. Sigma Pi Phi was founded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Just so happened Philadelphia won the Super Bowl. Nothing is done by coincidence. And so they're building up black people, but not black people like you think. They're building up a group of 5,000 or so black people that are the barrier between them and everything that they have to do. or subdue fraternity lifestyle, and it may be for them, but Alpha Phi Alpha, one of their members is Chadwick Boseman. He is a graduate from Howard University. Howard University is where Alpha Phi Alpha started. So just interesting to do your research on the boule, Sigma Pi Phi, Alpha Phi Alpha, even Omega Psi Phi. But I want to highlight that Sigma Pi Phi also open to members of other races, as can be demonstrated by its well-known Jewish member, Jack Greenberg, who succeeded Thurgood Marshall as a general counsel of the NAACP. What does Jack Greenberg and Thurgood Marshall have to do with anything? My man's in them. Thurgood Marshall, Chadwick Boseman. He played in a couple movies before he started in Black Panther. He was a television veteran, and then he kind of segued into feature films and being like a Hollywood actor. The funny thing about this dude, like him being a star, he's a horrible actor. He has no screen presence. Like, he's just so nothing of a person, but his status is so built up that I don't know, I feel like I'm living in the Twilight Zone watching him be like the leading actor. And I don't want to sound like a hater, but he has it's a clear reason in my eyes as to why he's so successful. He is taking the best of us and making us digestible for the mass public. And as an American, in this country as it stands today, February 21st, 2018, and it's 12 a.m. so let me give a rest in peace to Malcolm X. He passed away this day in 1965, so please give an ashe to him, one of our great ancestors. So please. But anyways, Marshall, 42, and get on up. Marshall, Chadwick Boseman played Thurgood Marshall. In 42, he played Jackie Robinson. And get on up, he played James Brown. And so that's a lot of energy to be carrying on you. And then come into this Black Panther series, they're riding the energy that he's kind of harnessed, that nobody has said anything because we kind of in a daze. Like, but if you watch these movies with a critical mind, like, these movies are horrible and the messages are horrible. Let's talk about 42 first. Well, since we're talking about Thurgood Marshall, let's start with Thurgood Marshall. Just a little quick critique on this dude as being one of the worst actors in history. Like, no skills. Chadwick Boseman, he is Thurgood Marshall. He's working for the NAACP, and he's going around. Thurgood Marshall went around the country just saving niggas, like a real live Superman. If anybody was the Black Panther, was Thurgood Marshall, because you have to do your research on Thurgood Marshall if you want to understand what I'm talking about as being a superhero. But there was one particular case in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where this man, I can't think of his name. It was a weird name, like Sheets or something like that. He got accused of murdering a white woman, blah, blah, blah. Like, same story, whatever. Good Marshall being one of the greatest orators in the history, just not of black people, of the country, one of the greatest judges we've ever seen. In this movie, he wasn't able to even speak. So if you have one of the world, it's like making a movie about Michael Jordan and you never see him play basketball, but it's called Jordan. Like, how, like, movie about him selling basketball shoes or something, like, I don't know. But generally, this movie was a disrespect to the legacy of Thurgood Marshall. because it was all given to this man right here, Mr. Friedman, Sam Friedman, the Jewish man to the left of Chadwick Boseman. But this is a theme in his career, supporting, you know, I don't know what to call them, the others. Fuck, I don't know what to say. He supports the others, and his whole career. And in this movie in particular, Marshall and 42, it's all about Jackie Robinson. But the last scene of the movie is this man, Harrison Ford, aka Indiana Jones, doing one of the worst acting jobs I've ever seen. You know, 42 is one of the worst movies ever, because it wasn't about nothing except white and black people not liking each other. Like, we understand that racism existed in the 40s. Why can't we just have a story without, it's like, you know, something happens, then racism happens, and then like the strings start playing and it gets all tense and shit. Like, you should be smart enough to know that, you know, you shouldn't be racially provoked. We understand that racism exists, but ultimately it's our responsibility to get off our ass. So putting out these movies and shit is not helping black people. You know, it's just making the information digestible for the others. And so Get On Up, the same thing. Listen, I'm gonna tell you how sick this movie is. James Brown told his mama to kiss his ass, but when his manager died by Dan Aykroyd, you might have thought Chadwick Boseman wanted to get into the grave site with him. This nigga was crying, singing, dancing, like, and I'm like, if you gonna treat your mama like this, but this man who helped you, like, you probably known him for whatever, it was just a real sick movie. And Get On Up was probably one of the worst movies you ever want to see about a legend. Like, it, out of these three movies, 42, Marshall, Get On Up was by far the worst movie. And I guess people don't respect James Brown that much, so they just let him get away with it or whatever. But if you had any respect for James Brown and his music and what he stood for, or just him being a melanated individual, like we should have been revoked this dude's pass, because he doing the most. So and it don't stop. Back to the movie. The tradition continues with this guy, Everett Ross, a CIA agent and former liaison with the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Everett Ross is reunited with T'Challa when they both find themselves after Claw, a skilled tactician with advanced weapons training, blah, blah, blah. Ross becomes an invaluable ally to Black Panther. In what world does a CIA agent become an invaluable ally to anything that we're doing as people? Not even as black people, white people, none of them labels, none of that made up colorable title thing that y'all like to put yourself into. The CIA, understand that this is Marvel. This dude could have been a SHIELD agent. I would have hoped that he'd have been like part of, I forget what they call it in British, Interpol or something like that. I don't know. Like, he could have been of any organization in the world. The CIA though, and niggas, like, CIA and niggas just do not go together. Like, on no point of understanding. FBI, CIA, black people separated. Like, you can't put those two things together, because one of these, Everett Ross is your enemy, period, point blank, by him being a CIA agent. So if you have a movie with your known enemy, then let's watch it, let's talk about it, but let us not act like this is a good movie. Let us not celebrate this movie. Because if the CIA agent didn't die, if he didn't get his head blown off, then it wasn't a good movie. Because if you don't know what the CIA has done to your community, to your daddy, to your uncles, then do your research, brother. Don't be mad at me, because you don't know about the Dark Alliance, the Black Operation. You understand? The CIA, the Contras, the crack cocaine explosion by Mr. Gary Webb. Do your research on that before you want to talk to me about CIAs and Black Panthers and this movie being worth anything. You understand? It's not even being deep or conspiracy theory. Like, all of this shit is just surface information. Like, I don't even know what I would find if I went deep into this movie. I don't even think there's a such thing as deep in this movie, because everything is just on the surface. If they wanted to make a good movie, they could have. But they didn't want to make a good movie. They wanted to make a political statement, and they wanted to get your energy to support it, to kind of right the wrongs of history. But there's no way. There's no way. Especially in a movie called Black Panther, okay? With the lead role being an ally to a CIA agent. That don't make no sense. But this ain't the first movie named Panther. It's a black cougar too. Like Ryan Coogler. You want to look up the movie Black Cougar. It's about a superhero that saved children. But it was another movie called Panther that was about the Black Panthers. Starring every black person ever. Directed by Melvin Van Peebles. Written by his father. Like, this movie was super black. But you know, the narrative around this movie is that this was the first time black people have ever made a movie that ever acted, like, ever was a black director. You know, since the beginning of theater, we have, you know, anybody can grab a camera and express themselves and edit and create a movie. You understand? So people like Oscar Micheaux, we have been making movies for a while now. People like Spike Lee. Like, this is crazy. These dudes did not make a good movie, but I feel like I'm the only person in the whole entire world, like, just objective. And maybe the movie was okay, but it wasn't good. It wasn't never good. And I don't think it was okay. I think it was horrible. Hogwash. But since everybody loves it, I have to at least say that it was okay. But personally, horrible, man. It was some stuff that connected to what's going on to this movie. Because you have the first movie of Panther. Towards the end, it was this character named Judge, played by Kadeem Hardison. Judge, just like Thurgood Marshall was a judge. But anyways, towards the end of the movie, Judge had been working with this informant or whatever, and the informant was like, man, just go, I'm done with you. He like, I ain't about to leave, you ain't about to shoot me in my back. He's like, I don't gotta shoot you, you already dead. He's like, what you mean? He like, the CIA and the FBI, they done flooded the communities with cheap drugs. This whole shit about to be over. You gotta understand that 300,000, they said at the end of the movie in the 1970s, there were 300,000 people addicted to drugs. By the 1980s, there were 3 million people addicted to drugs. Crack cocaine came into the community and messed it completely up. And you can be like, oh, whatever. How did crack ruin the community? Da 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 da. But just like heroin, crack, like you can't use that but one time. Once you use it once, you're hooked to it. So it was grown ass men with good ass jobs and holding the family down. Try crack one time and they calling home like, babe, I'm never coming home again. Like all throughout the country. And like, niggas wasn't in a backyard with poppy seeds, making cocaine, doing chemical compounds and trying to figure out the best way to make this thing addictive. No, it was flooded through the communities, first in LA and California, and from there throughout the rest of the country. And it was supplied by the CIA. So when you talk about destruction, how is you going to partner up with the same person that destroyed your people? And I know a lot of people are gonna say this ain't real, it's just a movie. Well, that's only if you did not see the movie. If you did see the movie, if you know people that seen the movie, you have to deal with their subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is over 90% of your reality, and the 10% of your conscious mind that differentiates between what's real and what's fake, the 90%, the larger part of your being, is not picking and choosing and making decisions like that. It's taking in everything that accepts is to be real. The same way when you were a child and you were in public school and the teacher was telling you, first it was the transatlantic slave trade, and then it was the Middle Passage and world history and what happened in Europe and things of that nature and the Mesopotamias and that. And you might have asked like, well, what about my history? Yeah, well, your history began in 1492 when Christopher Columbus came over here, and then he came back, and then we had to bring people to work the land. So we took your ancestors. That's where your history starts at, Daquan. And it's just like, that's how our subconscious mind just accepts that, and we could then embellish and build upon that. We can wear dashikis, we can get our face painted now, we can get tribal tattoos and shit like that. It don't make you more African though. It just means that you've accepted that idea and you believe it. You were taught it as a younger person and you've accepted it and adopted it. There's other human beings that are African and they have your same hue or similar to your hue, and so you adopt the culture. And whether you feel like something's wrong with that, that's up to you to decide. But that's just generally how it works. You're an individual. Like, literally, you don't need a people or a country or a group of motherfuckers to vibe with. You can just be yourself and then die, because you were born alone and you die alone. That's the only thing that you have, you know. And can't nobody tell you what to do or who to be. Self-identity is the first rule. From self-identity, everything else grows. I'm not trying to get off topic. So this movie had an A-list of stars and people who were about to be stars. Mr. Dick Gregory, ashe to him, who passed away this year. Angela Bassett was in this movie as Betty Shabazz. Angela Bassett was also in Malcolm X as Betty Shabazz. I just want to talk about Betty Shabazz real quick. It's weird because I read something that she had something to do with his death, and I was like, yo, that's crazy. But then if you do the knowledge, Malcolm Shabazz, the first male born in the Malcolm X lineage, is her grandson, and he burnt her house down. And he said that she didn't even have to die that day. She could have got out the house, but something made her run through the fire. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. And then from there, he was 12 and that happened. He do other things. He ended up dying in 2013. So I just find that interesting. Angela Bassett being in this movie with all that Betty Shabazz energy. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I mean, you can't really say too much bad about Angela Bassett. Just that movie was just it was just a cooning affair, man. So I don't know. Everybody that was in that movie had something to do with that movie. I just gotta look at them with the side eye because I just don't know no more. Chris Rock was in there. He was one of them dudes on the street corner talking shit. But it was interesting. Earlier in the week, he put out a special called Tambourine. And that just made me think about him even more because he was the first one that introduced the concept that there's a war going on that most people don't know about. And the war is between black people and niggas. And niggas have got to go. You understand? And so I'm like, wow. That's really deep because that's what all that movie was about. It was about black people and niggas. It was about the elites versus everybody else. And you left the movie celebrating and champion the elite and their leader and feeling sorry for everybody else, Killmonger, who passed away. But at the end of the day, fuck all them niggas. Like, why do I have to involve myself in that stupid shit? Like, for real, they got this high society and they still trying to figure out who gonna be the king by a fist fight. Like, being the toughest don't make you the smartest or best ruler. This ain't 51 BC. Like, this is like their whole way of thinking was just messed up. Just the Wakandans. And Killmonger wasn't no better. Just something to do your research on. This was a Killmonger war mask, and this right onto the right was a Naga war mask. So we are global people, man. We just ain't from Africa. Some parts of this movie, it was a because they didn't call Indians for no reason. They knew they wasn't Indians. You understand? Because Indians just represents the indigos or the dark people. And so in India, we existed there. We existed there as the Naga or the nigga, or in Ethiopia, the negus, Negus. You understand? So when you say nigga, you writing exact. It's normal. A further critique of this movie, man, I was trying to figure out, like, where the hell was Wakanda at? Like, you seen the lair with Shuri, and then you seen the one scene and a couple scenes, but it's supposed to be a whole country of just a whole lit situation. Like, I need to see some streets. I need to see somebody's house. I need to be all up in Wakanda. Like, I don't know. It just felt like Wakanda wasn't there. Like, I don't know. That part of the movie, I just was like trying to figure out, like, why is this movie absent? Like, why is it so much missing? Like, why is this movie so bad? I don't know. The name Wakanda originated as an American name. So Wakanda means that you possess magical powers. And the reason that I brought this slide up was for no reason at all. You just don't pay it no attention, okay? But back to Chris Rock, man. Everybody want to talk about the elite and how successful people is and how much money you made. And I'm not hating on nobody or feeling like making money is wrong. But what I am saying is that we need to figure out our own version of success. We need to label our own version of success. And I'm not talking about we as in black people, because that shit is dead, man. These niggas like only care about a goddamn movie. Like, they'll never get excited over nothing real. You understand? Everybody talking about it's fake, but it sure got people excited, and it sure got your attention in dollars, and it's got you wanting to tell your kids that they from Africa all of a sudden. Like, the only reason you think your kid is from, you think you from Africa is this movie. And this shit wasn't even shot in Africa. It was shot in Atlanta and Buckhead somewhere. Like, this shit crazy, man. But, you know, we all can't be the band leader. Sometimes we gotta play the tambourine. Sometimes we gotta just know our role, you understand? And stop trying to create this level of hierarchy and trying to be this player. And if people had that mentality with the original Black Panthers, who knows what they could be. But, man, it's just a crazy world we live in, where you got to take care of yourself, man, because niggas will sell you out for a Black Panther ticket, and the movie ain't even good. Be sure to hit me up, man, on the email hoodmystic@gmail.com. Available for tarot readings, astrology readings, chakra counseling. Got some more stuff that I'm working on. Have an updated list real soon. But this was just my official movie review.